This is Speaking of Writers. I'm Steve Richards. This is the Speaking of Writers podcast. I'm Steve Richards. The book is Air Conditioned Bus Tours. The author is David Swanson. So who doesn't like vacations with ultimate relaxations? The vacation a person takes depends upon individual desires, of course. Most folks like to be wined and dined. A few prefer different vacations, developing the ability to ignore inconveniences. Darren prefers these vacations, being a backpacker. He's just returned from his latest adventure and receives a call informing him that their uncle, Jorge DaSilva, would like to take a niece-nephew cruise. So Jorge has lots of money. Darren becomes skeptical concerning the trip since this isn't his idea of adventure. Ryan mentioning that Darren prefers adventures where the excitement comes from doing things off the cuff. Initially, Darren refuses participation, and various individuals try to change his mind. Eventually, they have him participating. It is a river cruise vacation which occurs, and then things get stranger after Jorge suffers a mild heart attack. He recovers. Jorge tells Darren that he wishes he could have done these rough and tumble vacations when he was younger. Having just participated in a cruise, Darren wants to continue his backpack vacations. David Swanson is different. Individuals reading this may experience laughter. David is eccentric, a humorous writer, novelist who lives in beautiful southwest Colorado and the southwest Colorado mountain town of Silverton. He writes nonfiction and fiction, with the only requirement being that the piece has to be comedic or humorous. He's just that passionate about it. He didn't obtain his bachelor's degree in creative writing from CU Boulder. Instead, he earned a biology BA, and this is a good thing for his writing because the environmental science degree opened many doors in the area of outdoor blue-collar type jobs. Happy to have David Swanson join me here on Speaking of Writers. Welcome to this program.
Oh, thanks a lot. Thank you very much for having me.
So, David, how did you come up with the idea for this novel?
You know, love to travel. I think it's something that I inherited from my background because my mom grew up in China, and so I'm Macanese. That's Portuguese people that lived in China, and they'd been there for many generations. My father's family, Northern Italian, from the Tyrol region of Northern Italy, and they immigrated to America. So I have a real diverse background, and I've been able to do a lot of traveling. I actually lived in Kenya, in East Africa, for a while, and I've lived in Australia, and because I'm so obsessed with mountains, I love to travel to places that have mountains. So I've been to Peru, Nepal, Tibet. I want to go to Patagonia someday. I just came back from living in Colorado. I'm a big skier. I just came back from a ski trip that my buddy and I went to Japan this past winter, and that was unbelievable. We went to the northern island of Japan, which is Hokkaido, and that place gets more snow than anywhere else in the world. It's just mountains and mountains of snow. So if you're the type of person that doesn't like snow and cold, you probably don't want to go there. But I've had a chance to travel in a lot of different places, and I really enjoy it. And that's kind of been the inspiration for the writing of this novel. I wanted to do something this is semi-autobiographical, this novel, but I wanted to do something a little bit different because it's fiction. And I'm so upset, like you said, I'm obsessed with humorous writing. I love humor. And that became like a big impetus for the story, and I enjoyed that aspect of it.
Where did that obsession come from? And did you always want to be a writer?
Not necessarily. When I first went to college and got my bachelor's in environmental biology, that's what got me into the Peace Corps. And I pursued, after I came back to America, I pursued graphic arts. And I went to a cartooning school in New Jersey, of all places. And that was a great thing. But I don't know, there was just voice in the back of my head that kept saying, there's got to be something else. I loved doing the artwork and cartooning and things like that, but I was never passionate about it. And then I just started writing one day, and it's just like, it's steamrolled from there. And it's just something that I'm obsessed with. It seems like every day I have to do a little bit of writing, some of one form or another. And I like doing fiction as well as nonfiction, because the nonfiction I've had, the town where I live, it's where I grew up. It's in the southwestern part of Colorado in the San Juan Mountains. And for those who aren't familiar with that area, you've probably heard of a place called Telluride, which is on the other side of the mountain from Silverton. And I don't know, I'm biased, but I think our mountains are the pretty mountains of Colorado. Now, the mountains up around Denver and stuff, they're nice and everything, but they don't hold the candle to the San Juans. And that was kind of the inspiration that I got for writing the book. And I just I started writing it, and the ideas just flowed from there, which was great. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a fun experience.
You said somewhat of an autobiography. So how much of you and which character is most closely aligned with you, if any?
Probably the protagonist more than anything else, Darren.
Mm.
His character was based on a friend of mine from Australia, and the inspiration kind of came from him. He's a bit of a smart ass, and so is his sister. The interesting thing, I kind of changed it from my own background, because I have 4 sisters, but this Darren character in the novel, he only has 1 sister, and his parents were killed in a car accident. Now, his uncle has a tremendous amount of money, and he's very magnanimous, and he wants to do something nice before he goes to meet his maker. And so he decides that he wants to take his nieces and nephews on this river cruise. The thing is this river cruise is so different from the type of vacation that Darren does, because he's a backpacker. He likes to do this backpack stuff where it's rough and ready. And, a lot of it, you have to deal with the inconveniences, as opposed to going on a cruise where everything is done for you. And your meals are all taken care of, that kind of thing. But he gets talked into going on this. And then from there, the adventures that happen when this takes place.
Yeah, these river cruises are so popular now.
They very much so. The cruise in the fictional story in the novel is a cruise down the Danube River in Europe. And the part of the reason they do that is because Uncle Jorge DaSilva, he enjoys the whole thing about reading espionage novels and that type of thing. So that was the reason that he chose that. And at first, Darren doesn't want to do it, but he gets talked into it by his cousins and his sister and various friends and family. And there's one set of friends, because he works at the library in this small town where he lives, and they try to convince him not to go on this cruise, because they think he's compromising his principles by doing that. But eventually, in the end, he's convinced that he should do it, because part of the reason he's convinced to do it is because he finds out that his uncle he's not going to get any of the inheritance if he doesn't go on the cruise. So that was a big impetus for him to do that, and he decides to do it.
Let's talk family for a moment. What is your relationship with your siblings and first cousins?
Pretty good. I've got 2 sisters that live in the Denver metro area. And then I've got one sister that lives down in Texas, and another sister that's in this area, but she's moved back and forth to Denver. She's living in Denver right now. The nice thing about Colorado is 70% of the population in the state of Colorado is in that corridor between Fort Collins and Pueblo on the Front Range. That's what they influence a lot of what happens. Now, the western slope of Colorado is growing tremendously, with all these ski towns and resorts and things like that. But it's still not growing as fast as Denver. The Denver metro area is just exploding, becoming like a lot of parts of the country, like Austin, Texas,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it's,
Like
it's,
where I am here in Asheville, North Carolina, in the mountains, same thing. Yeah. Just booming
uh,
here.
yeah. And I think part of the reason it's booming here is because of the whole issue with global warming. And it's getting so hot down in New Mexico and places like Phoenix and Dallas and LA that a lot of the people, when they go on vacation, they want to come up to the mountains where it's nice and cool. And that's part of the reason that it's exploding around here. Now, we do have very long winters where I live in Silverton because our altitude is pretty high. We're at 9,300 feet in elevation. And it's going to start getting cold at the end of September. And then we're going to have snow until about the middle of April. So it lasts a while. And I think in order to live here and be happy, you have to enjoy doing a lot of outdoor things, skiing, snowboarding, I've got a number of friends that do a lot of backcountry skiing and snowboarding, that type of thing. It's an interesting environment if you like to do those kind of things. Summertime is great because there's so many opportunities for hiking. There's tons of places that you can hike around here. We're close to the desert too. You can get from here to the Grand Canyon in 4 hours. We're really close.
Great spot. Yeah.
Yeah, you can get to Moab really close. We're really close there. That's like 3 hour drive from here. Now we're actually a six hour drive up to the Denver from here because we're way down in the southern end of the state, the Four Corners region, where 4 states meet. But all this traveling and going on all these adventures was kind of a big inspiration for writing the novel. That's where I got a lot of the ideas.
Yeah,
And
you've been to so many interesting places. It had to, of course, influence the writing here.
oh, I think it has. I think a big influence for me is when I was in Peace Corps. I was very lucky when I was in Peace Corps because Kenya at that time, and it still is. I mean, they've got the population has exploded over there, but I was working as a forester, and I got to do a lot of traveling when I was living over there. I lived in an area of Kenya called the Central Highlands around Mount Kenya, and climbed Mount Kenya a couple times, climbed Kilimanjaro, climbed the Mountains of the Moon, the Ruwenzoris in Western Kenya, in Western Uganda, and went down to the coast. But I had some great adventures when I was living over there. And that was Peace Corps is so funny. You talk to some people and they'll say, oh, it was the best experience of my life. I loved it. I loved the work that I was doing. I loved the people. It was great. But then you talk to somebody else and I say, that was the biggest waste of time in my life. I don't even know why I did it. So you get varying things because, person that might have been in Estonia in 1991, their experience is totally different from a person that was in Guatemala in 1978, or a person that was in Kenya in 1982, 83, like me. Different experience based on the type of work that you're doing, the environment that you're living in, where you're living, the people that you interact with.
And
So
different time period too. Yeah.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Now I've had friends that have spent time they were in the Peace Corps in Eastern Europe after the wall came down and the Soviet Union disappeared. And their experience is completely different from, I had another friend that was a volunteer in Costa Rica, not Costa Rica, but Panama. And their experience was completely different. And these days, I think the requirements to get into Peace Corps are a lot more stringent than they used to be. Like if you go to Spanish-speaking country, you have to be able to speak some Spanish before you even go there.
David, where did the title come from? Air-conditioned bus tours, not to give away too much.
Okay, my cousin and I, we were able to do a lot of traveling, and one of the first trips that I went on with him is we went to Nepal, and we were in Kathmandu, and then we booked this tour. This was in the days when you could go into China. You can't do that anymore. You have to go out. So what we did is we booked this 4-wheel drive tour that went from Kathmandu up onto the Tibetan plateau, and it ended in Lhasa, Tibet. And that was just amazing. That was just an incredible experience. It's changed a lot since then. Now they have a train that goes all the way from Beijing up to Lhasa, and the Chinese government, they're very strict about the time, where tourists can go, that kind of, that you have to have an itinerary and that type of thing. It's a little bit looser in those days, but the air-conditioned bus tours came from, he coined that term when we were on that trip. And then, he embellished it a little bit when we went to Peru, because I went on a trip with him to Peru. And we talked about it and I gave him such a hard time because he lives in the Bay Area, San Francisco. He lives in the Oakland Hills. And I live here in Colorado. And he got deathly sick from the high altitude sickness when we were in Peru. Like we went up to Lake Titicaca and a few other places. And he just got sick, and I gave him such a hard time. I kept teasing him all the time about that, But that after I'd written the story and I sent him the first draft of the novel for him to read it, he read it and he thought to himself, "You coined that term for me, didn't you?" And I said, "I sure did."
Stole that one from him. Yes, borrowed it from him. Yeah. Air-conditioned bus tours, the book. It's available, by the way, at writersrepublic.com, also amazon.com too, and at your independent bookstore as well. If they don't have it, tell them to get it.
Give them the ISBN number.
Give her the ISBN number. That's right.
There you go.
Yeah. All right, David.
You live in Asheville.
Yes, Asheville, North Carolina.
The only time I've ever been to North Carolina is I had one of my buddies from Peace Corps, and he was going to graduate school at College Triangle. He was at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill.
Yeah.
And that was the only time I'd ever been to North Carolina.
Yeah, it's beautiful here too. We have mountains, not as I'm at 2,500 feet right now, but not what you're at. But
you're at sea level. It goes up from sea level
right.
up to right. You start high, that kind of thing.
He's David Swanson. The book is Air-Conditioned Bus Tours. Again, available at writersrepublic.com, amazon.com, and at your independent bookstore too. David, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for pushing the independent bookstore thing. Absolutely. I'm constantly telling my friends, well, you can get a copy of the book, but you should buy it through an independent bookstore. It might cost you a little bit more money, but it's worth it.
Shop local.
Exactly.
That's right.
That's what you have to do.
Thank you for joining me.
All right. Hey,
David Swanson.
Thanks for talking to me.
Absolutely.
All right. I appreciate
Air-Conditioned Bus Tours is the book. And this is Speaking of Writers. This is Speaking of Writers. I'm Steve Richards.